this is a mark for the 250th anniversary. You will never see this again for 250 years.
To have like a little air show along with this whole fair thing, yeah, it's the cherry on top. 250 years, like you said, it's not insignificant.
The Great American State Fair is underway this weekend in Washington. It runs through Friday. Each state has its own booth to celebrate America 250. Here's a look inside Wisconsin's, featuring, of course, a big cow, a Harley-Davidson motorcycle, and tourism promotions.
Wisconsin's America 250 committee is assisting in all the efforts here in the state and in Washington. Christopher Kolakowski is the commission's chair and the director of the Wisconsin Veterans Museum. He joins us now. Chris, welcome to Upfront.
Thanks for having me.
So walk us through the work that the commission has done really for years now leading up to this holiday weekend.
It's hard to believe we've been working on this for 5 years. We were created by the legislature back in 2021, and the commission membership was set to include representatives of, the senior elected officials, but also key stakeholders in this event. Our Native Nations, state tourism, the Wisconsin Historical Society, the Wisconsin Veterans Museum, the Sons of the American Revolution, Daughters of the American Revolution, and many others. And our mission has been to create and commemorate both the 250th birthday of the United States, which of course is July 4th, 2026, but also Wisconsin's role in the development of the United States. And that's really been important because we've been able to make it not just about what happened 250 years ago, as important as that was, but it's also about the ongoing journey toward a more perfect union, as the Constitution says. And the American project that started 250 years ago and goes on right up to this minute. And the response we've gotten around the state has been wonderful.
Yeah, there are a number of national celebrations really putting Wisconsin in the spotlight as well. We mentioned the American State Fair that has the Wisconsin booth featured in the nation's capital. There's also part of the national celebrations that include a time capsule. Can you explain what Wisconsin contributed to that capsule?
So they're burying a time capsule in Philadelphia, and it's going to be opened on the 500th birthday of the United States, so 250 years from now. And there were very strict parameters about what you could put in the time capsule. First of all, each state had a box basically the size of 2 cereal boxes stacked on top of each other. So there wasn't a lot of space. And then there was also limitations on what materials you could put in there that could last 250 years. So what we ended up doing was letters from the elected officials of the state. And then we put in some mementos from our Native Nations, from some veterans groups, and then a feather from Old Abe, the famous war eagle of the 8th Wisconsin from the Civil War, who is an enduring state symbol for Wisconsin, but also was the star of the Centennial Exposition in Philadelphia in 1876. So it was a neat tie to 1876 to 2026, and then obviously to the 500th birthday. It was just within that space, we tried to be as representative as we could of just showing in the future what a great tapestry Wisconsin is.
Yeah, pretty cool. I guess cheese would spoil over the next 250 years. Can't put that in a time capsule. The celebrations and events, they really continue past this holiday weekend. You talk about the commission really working for about 5 years on this. I mean, these are celebrations that will continue past this holiday weekend all throughout the year.
That's right. And that's one of the things we've been real strong about is this. It started in 2025 with the birthdays of the military and the beginning of the revolution, the anniversary of the beginning of the revolution. And then 2026 to me is the entire birthday year. The State Fair is going to have elements of 250th. The Summerfest obviously is going to have elements. We're looking already to how we make America 250 and the 25th of 9/11 this September, Veterans Day. The commission goes through January 1st of next year. And to my mind, our work still has, months to run after this coming weekend.
Yeah, what is the hope? What's your hope, the commission's hope, that Wisconsinites take away from the work that has gone into planning, not just this weekend, but really this entire year?
So one of the biggest things anniversaries do is they're opportunities for reflection. There's some celebration, as there should be, but it's also an opportunity to not just look at what happened in Philadelphia, but look at where we've come. Look at what this country has progressed over the last 250 years, where we are and where we're going. And it's a tremendous opportunity for celebration, for reflection and commemoration.
Yeah, a great celebration indeed. Chris Kolakowski, the chair of the Wisconsin 250 Commission, thanks so much for your time. Happy 4th.
Hey, thanks for having me. Happy 4th.
With that, let's bring in Charles Franklin, the director of the Marquette Law School poll. Charles, you are out with a new national poll recently, and it showed leading up to this weekend, there really weren't a lot of people paying attention to the 250th celebration of our nation's birthday.
That's right. It's not negligible, but it's not particularly large either. Around 20% to 25%, depending on the question, seem to be seriously involved in celebrating the 250th anniversary. Another 30 or 40% are somewhat involved, paying some attention, and 20 to 25% are paying no attention at all. I looked back historically. I found a poll done almost exactly the same dates in June 50 years ago for the bicentennial of the Declaration, and attention to that one almost exactly the same as it is to this one. So we don't seem to have lost interest over the last 50 years, but we haven't gained a lot of interest either.
You also asked Americans if they are proud of the country and some follow-up questions related to that. And in some of those answers, it appears there's somewhat of a partisan divide. What are some of the big takeaways you saw in those numbers?
Yeah, the simple takeaway is that sizable majorities are proud of the country, think we are better than most other countries, and for the most part think we've lived up to the ideals of the founders. A smaller percentage are extremely proud or extremely strong in thinking we're better. So it's not an unleavened pride or positivity to the country, but it is definitely there. But when you look at it by party, Republicans are noticeably more proud, think we've lived up to our ideals compared to Democrats, though a majority of Democrats and Republicans and independents are on the positive side of the ledger, but it is definitely a matter of degree. Some of that surely is simply which party is in the control of the White House right now.
You also asked about the future of this country, future of democracy. What are people feeling at this moment?
Well, that is the downside of this poll. We're about 50-50 divided on whether the democracy has a strong chance for continuing in the country. And again, not surprisingly, there's a big partisan split on that. So looking backwards and looking at the present, people are quite positive. But when you ask about the future as a democracy, people are really evenly divided and a very partisan split on that one.
Marquette Law School poll director Charles Franklin. Hey, Charles, like always, thank you.
Thank you. Happy 4th.
You as well.
Coming up, the Dancing Grannies join the America 250 celebrations. We caught up with them just before the big march in both Philly and D.C. That's next.